Pretend you love me for 10 minutes, the CEO said, his voice trembling in a boardroom built for power and intimidation, and the single dad janitor standing in the doorway nearly dropped the mop from his hands. No one in that towering glass building would ever forget what happened next. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet strength of ordinary people, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The building stood tall over the city skyline, its mirrored windows reflecting ambition and ego in equal measure. At the very top floor worked Alexander Beaumont, the brilliant yet emotionally guarded CEO of Beaumont Industries, a man who had built a billion-dollar empire from nothing but raw intelligence and relentless drive. People feared him. Investors admired him. Employees avoided eye contact when he walked by. But no one truly knew him. And down on the ground floor, long after the executives had left and the marble floors echoed only with the hum of air vents, worked Daniel Carter, a janitor with tired eyes and a heart that refused to give up. Daniel had not always carried a mop and bucket for a living. Once, he had been a mechanic with his own small garage on the edge of town. Once, he had been a husband. Once, he had been part of a family that felt whole. But life, as it often does, had cracked him open. When his wife, Rebecca, fell ill with an aggressive autoimmune disease, the medical bills devoured their savings. Daniel sold his garage piece by piece to cover treatments that ultimately couldn't save her. By the time she passed, he was left with debt, a 5-year-old daughter named Lily, and a grief so heavy it bent his spine. Now, every morning before sunrise, Daniel prepared Lily's lunch, braided her messy golden hair the way Rebecca used to, and walked her to the bus stop with a forced smile. Every night, after putting her to bed with stories about brave princesses and fearless explorers, he headed to Beaumont Industries to scrub floors most people never noticed. He worked quietly, invisibly. Until the night everything changed. It was nearly midnight when Daniel finished cleaning the executive floor. He heard something unusual, a sound that didn't belong in a building of steel confidence. It was the sound of someone crying. He followed the sound cautiously down the corridor lined with abstract paintings and expensive sculptures until he reached the open door of the main boardroom. Inside, under the dim glow of city lights filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows, sat Alexander Beaumont. His tie was loosened, his hair disheveled, and his eyes red from tears. The most powerful man in the building looked utterly broken. Daniel hesitated. It wasn't his place. He was just the janitor. But grief recognizes grief, and something in Alexander's hunched shoulders felt painfully familiar. When Alexander looked up and saw him, embarrassment flashed across his face. He wiped his eyes quickly, but the vulnerability lingered. And then came the words that would ripple through both their lives. Pretend you love me for 10 minutes. The request hung in the air like fragile glass. Alexander's voice cracked as he explained. Earlier that evening, he had finalized a divorce settlement. His wife of 12 years had left months ago, unable to endure the emotional distance that his obsession with work had created. Their 8-year-old son, Ethan, now lived primarily with her across the country. That afternoon, Ethan had sent a voice message asking why his father never said, "I love you," without sounding distracted. Alexander had realized, with a sickening jolt, that he didn't remember the last time he had truly embraced anyone without checking his watch. He didn't know how to be warm. He didn't know how to express love without feeling exposed. And in a moment of raw desperation, he had turned to the only human being in the building, the janitor who happened to be there. Daniel could have laughed. He could have walked away. Instead, he set down his mop. He didn't pretend. He sat across from Alexander and spoke softly, not as a janitor to a CEO, but as one father to another. He told him how Lily still reached for the empty side of the bed in the morning, thinking her mother might be there. He described the first time she asked why heaven needed her mom more than she did. His voice trembled, but he didn't hide it. He explained that love wasn't in grand gestures or expensive vacations, it was in sitting on the floor during tea parties, in listening fully, in saying, "I'm here," and meaning it. Alexander listened as though every word was oxygen. Then Daniel did something that stunned him. He stood up and wrapped his arms around the CEO. Not formally. Not stiffly. But like a brother would. Like a father who understood the terror of failing a child. For 10 minutes, they stood there, two men stripped of titles and status, holding on to each other's shared humanity. Alexander wept openly. The next morning, something subtle shifted in Beaumont Industries. Alexander cancelled 3 non-essential meetings. He flew across the country unannounced to attend Ethan's school recital. He left his phone in his pocket and clapped louder than anyone in the auditorium. But the changes didn't stop there. He began noticing things he had never cared to see before. The exhausted receptionist working double shifts. The security guard studying for night classes. And Daniel, who always arrived early, always left quietly, and never complained. One evening, Alexander asked Daniel about his life in more detail. He learned about the lost garage, the medical debt, the little girl who dreamed of becoming an astronaut. He learned that Daniel sometimes skipped meals so Lily could attend ballet classes. Alexander didn't offer charity. He offered opportunity. Within weeks, Daniel was promoted to facilities supervisor, a position that came with health insurance and stable hours. Alexander arranged for Lily to attend a prestigious STEM summer program funded anonymously through the company's outreach foundation. And perhaps most astonishing of all, Alexander reinstated a small business grant program that had been cut years prior, a program that eventually allowed Daniel to reopen a modest auto repair shop on weekends. Word spread quietly through the company about the CEO's transformation. He was still demanding, still sharp-minded, but now he paused to ask employees about their families. He started ending meetings with gratitude instead of criticism. Productivity rose, but more importantly, morale soared. Months later, at the company's annual gala, Alexander took the stage. Instead of boasting about profits, he spoke about vulnerability. He shared how a janitor had taught him more about leadership in 10 minutes than any business school ever had. In the crowd, wearing a rented suit and holding Lily's hand, Daniel felt his chest tighten with emotion. But the true miracle happened afterward. Alexander approached Daniel privately and confessed that those 10 minutes had not been pretend at all. They had been the first honest connection he'd felt in years. He thanked Daniel not for cleaning floors, but for cleaning the dust off his heart. Daniel returned home that night and tucked Lily into bed. She asked why he was smiling. He told her that sometimes, when people are hurting, they don't need perfection or power. They just need someone to sit with them in the dark. Years later, Lily would earn a scholarship in engineering. Daniel's garage would grow into a respected local business. And Alexander would rebuild his relationship with Ethan, slowly, imperfectly, but sincerely. All because of 10 minutes that were never meant to change anything. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even the strongest people carry invisible wounds, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more stories that celebrate the quiet heroes among us. And before this story ends, I have one special request. Comment, "Kindness changes everything," if you believe a single act of compassion can rewrite someone's future. Because sometimes the most powerful transformations don't happen in boardrooms or on stages. They happen in silent rooms, between two imperfect human beings brave enough to stop pretending. And in those moments, love, real love, doesn't need to be faked at all.